Forget housewife superstar Dame Edna Everage and cultural attaché Sir Les Patterson. Barry Humphries has another extraordinary character to add to his act: himself. It means after 60 years of revealing his genius through others, audiences will now get to know the real Barry. And in a career as successful as his, there's plenty to know, including about the tough times and how the comedian's demons almost destroyed him. But thankfully, as you'll see, nothing could beat his need to make people laugh.
Ladies and gentlemen, clear the stage.
I'm ready for my public.
Barry Humphries is having a good chuckle watching home videos of himself. But then he is perhaps the funniest performer Australia has ever produced.
I know what all you Sheilas are staring at, I know! You're all looking at my penis, aren't you? And there she is, ladies and gentlemen.
Along with the laughs, there are precious childhood images.
My father on the right.
And some that are new, even to him. That's you.
That is me as Santa Claus, my God. Some of it I haven't seen for a very long time.
He knew you were Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. I might end up in a department store being Santa Claus.
Hello, possums. Edna's my name.
For more than half a century, Barry Humphries has entertained us with his many characters.
I could see this coming when that stupid non-event from 60 Minutes done a doco on my luxury weekender.
Creations that made him world famous.
Next minute you're about as popular as a turd in a swimming pool. I kid you not.
How good is it to feel laughter at something you've done?
Oh, laughter is a marvellous thing for the laugher and the person who induces the laugh. It's therapeutic. It's like some kind of cosmic forgiveness. To hear them there, it's like a fire going up a chimney, whoosh. And just something I said did that.
And so began a lifelong addiction to making others laugh, starting with Melbourne housewife Edna Everage, who developed wicked ways after arriving in London.
My husband is keeps a very low profile with regard to his illness. As a matter of fact, he never mentions his prostate, and when he does, he only mentions it in passing. As a matter of fact...
Barry's other alter ego, Sir Les Patterson, joined in on the act.
And welcome to Lunch with Les, or I should say, a late lunch with Les, because my little secretary, Christabel, and me lingered over the stickies today, we did.
I mean, Harvey Weinstein is a beginner compared with Les Patterson. But Les Patterson is the acceptable face of inappropriate behaviour.
Well, did Dame Edna ever find herself in a room with
Yes,
Les?
she did. And there are stories about that. Horrible stories. Many years ago, Les came to Melbourne and took the young Edna to the pictures, an experience she never would wish to repeat. It centres a bit around chocolates. Something that Les pressed into her hand while sitting in the back of the cinema. And he's a very comfortable character to perform.
Remind me to call his wife.
People were saying, humourless people were saying, oh, there might have been people like that in the old days, but no longer. We're a sophisticated country. Well, of course, we all know that Les is still around.
You're not out of step, though, are you? I mean, Barry Humphries isn't getting, out of step with this society that we've...
Oh, I hope so. I'd hate to be in step with the society. I certainly
The world today requires us to be very accepting.
We're required to be insane. The political correctness is the new Puritanism is scary. I just know that when I went to a dinner in Edinburgh, and a very pretty girl next to me said, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I'm gender fluid. I'd never heard that before. In other words, she can be whatever you want her to be, or she feels like being. And Les Patterson talks about it quite a lot, actually. In fact, he spends a fair bit of time at the dry cleaner, Les. And the dry cleaner always likes to know what that stain is and what is that stain. And Les generally says it's gender fluid.
Incredibly, now at the tender age of 84, Barry Humphries is bringing to the stage a new character, himself. You say you're taking the mask off. What will we find when we take that mask off?
Such a nice person. I've done what my mother said I did, and that is I've drawn attention to myself over all these years in heavy disguise. And I just think there's another story, there's another character, and that is the real character.
You've always had to look hard to find the real Barry. Growing up in Melbourne in the 1940s and 50s, the young Barry hated football and loved the theatre. Even then, the schoolboy was to be found playing the role of a woman. Were you a misfit?
I wasn't quite certain about my place in the world. And I have that in common, I suppose, with most people. My mother had an unfortunate turn of phrase. She said, sometimes rather loudly and in dinner parties, we don't know where Barry came from. And I think that was her real view. I did appear like a sort of cuckoo in the nest.
But did you feel different?
I always did feel different.
And did you use humour as a way of dealing with being different, if you like?
No, I used humour because it came to me naturally. I always liked the thought that there were people in the world devoted to making others laugh.
Being other people has come easily to Barry Humphries, but not so being himself.
G'day, Sarah. Glad to know you. Barry Mackenzie's the name, but most of me mates call me Bazza.
For 15 years, Barry was an alcoholic, up until the making of The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie in the early 70s.
Cop that, you rotten pommy bastard.
The stereotype drunken Aussie abroad, sticking it to the Poms, was closer to home than most people realised.
It's about 45 years since I had an alcoholic drink. So I need to discuss this with my friends in the audience to remind me of what it was like.
To remind you what it was like?
Yes,
because you've totally moved on and...
You can move on and you forget, really, what a danger you have experienced. You've got out of the lion's den, so don't go back for your hat.
Could it have taken your life?
Oh, yes, of course. It takes everyone's life all the time in Australia.
But when you realised you shouldn't have another drink, were you in that place where the next drink could have been a very, very bad
Oh, yes,
thing?
very. So it's just a bit of very good fortune, which makes me really believe in God, to believe in some kind of power outside of myself that decided to catch me.
Did you just wake up and go, I'm not doing this anymore?
No, I didn't do that. No, I got a lot of advice, a lot of support and help from people. I decided I wasn't running the universe. That's a very bitter discovery for people like me, to find out that I'm not the centre of the universe. And as a kid, that's where I was.
I only hope and pray that when the time eventually does come, as it will, Beryl's the first to go.
In his 9th decade, Barry Humphries is now finally face to face with one of his earliest and most poetic characters, Sandy Stone.
And the crazy whist and the couples.
Sandy Stone is a character in a dressing gown and slippers, clutching a hot water bottle. I invented this kindly old man of the suburbs, really to see how much boredom an audience could take. It turned out they could take a lot of boredom.
And so, like Sandy, it seems we can take quite a lot of Barry. And when he hits the road one more time, he'll be back to where he loves to be, one-to-one with his audience.
I have to ask, have you ever considered life without performing? Is that possible?
Not really. I get very irritable
Do you?
if I'm not on a stage, and yet I'm very nervous. And I wake up in the night laughing.
A joke?
My own jokes. No one amuses me more than I do.
What is success to you?
Generally, I mean, how did I get away with it? I don't ever think about it because I think success must lie ahead. I don't think of myself as really successful. I have one ability, I think, and that is to communicate with my fellow Australians. And that's the joy of it for me.
You can see more of my interview with the fabulous Barry Humphries in a special program, Above Everage, exclusively on 9Now.